with us tonight. So, with that, Kevin from Bellingham.
All right, my name is Kevin. I'm an addict.
Hey, Kevin.
Thanks for the introduction, Taylor. Thank you for the intro music playing. Right on point. Yeah, man, I'm grateful to be clean. I'm grateful to be in recovery, man. My clean date is January 21st, 2012. My home group is the New Frontiers Group, Narcotics Anonymous in Bellingham, Washington. We have 3 meetings a day. It is a complete shit show 90% of the time. 10% of the time it's all right. That's usually when I'm there. You know, most of the time it's a mess though, man. You know why? Because it's the front lines of Narcotics Anonymous in Walker County, man. And I love it there, man. I love being able to be there when people come right out of treatment, right off the streets, man, and tell them, hey, man, Narcotics Anonymous works. And here you can sit here, man, you can hear a message and you can maybe change your life if you do some work. Right, man? I love that home group. I do services at home group, man. I have service positions in other forms of Narcotics Anonymous, man. I have a sponsor who works NA Steps. He has a sponsor who works NA Steps, and I sponsor men that work NA Steps. Man, we do this thing together. Yeah. You know, for me, man, like, I'm nervous as hell, man. Anybody who's ever done this before is just nerve-wracking as shit, man. I don't know why, man, because y'all just a bunch of degenerate drug addicts just like me, man. There's something about being up here that makes the heart beat a little bit faster, you know what I mean? But right now, I just say a little prayer to God, man, and let God do what God does and remove myself from the situation and hope that somebody hears something that they need to hear. You know, but with that, man, I am your backup speaker tonight, so if things don't do the way that you like, man, that's why. You know, I'm not number 1, I'm number 2, okay? So you can blame it on that. Yeah, man, but thank you very much for asking me to speak, Taylor, man. Thankfully, you asked me just a couple of days ago, so I didn't have to obsess about it too much, you know, just the last couple of days. So thank you. I always am honored when I get the opportunity to share the message of Narcotics Anonymous. So let's get into it, man. Like for me, man, I'm born to a couple of drug addicts. Their mom and dad brought me home to a trailer park in Southern California, man, and you know, and that's not why I'm a drug addict, man. Mom and dad, you know, family disease, all that stuff doesn't matter, man. Why I'm a drug addict is irrelevant. All that matters is what I'm going to do about it. But I tell you that, man, because it gave me a different perspective on life. Right, growing up as a kid in an addict environment, a violent home, man, like, gave me a different set of tools right out the gate. Right, you know, like my house was very violent, man. And my daddy, I watched my old man beat my mom, my sister, and myself, you know, the whole time I was a kid until they got a divorce and split, you know, and, you know, there was a lot of drugs and partying and everything like that going on in my household, a lot of gang activity they never really talked about, but it was pretty obvious reflecting on it as an adult. You know, man, like I can remember as a kid, man, like, always enjoying those times though, right? When all the people came over and people were drinking and doing what they do, man, like things were okay, right? My parents were having a good time, right? They'd leave us alone, man, and everybody was happy, right? Things were okay in the house, right? You know, it was when nobody was around that things were fucked up, right? It was when the drugs weren't there, it was when they weren't drinking, it was when they weren't partying, when things were messed up, right? And just like us, man, like you take away the drugs, man, like things get worse for me. Right, the drugs were the solution in the beginning, right? They were what made me feel okay, made me feel whole for a little bit, you know? Put me in that environment, man, like I can thrive, give me what I need, man, I can be the person that I need to be, the person that I think you think I should be, you know? So, man, like I'm going through life in this environment, man, and we're moving around a lot all through Southern California, and eventually my parents realized that maybe living in that environment is not the best place for them, you know, and had grandma up in Mount Vernon, Washington, if you guys know where that is. But they decided that they were going to leave Southern California and move up to Washington. So they shipped me and my sister up to live with my grandparents at first, you know, and they stayed down there doing whatever they were doing, getting some money before they came up here. And, you know, and things were great when we lived with grandma and grandpa. You know, my sister and I were, you know, like going to school and kind of things were really normalized, right? And then my parents moved up. And they moved into this little trailer park in Mount Vernon. Trailer park's a bit of my story, I guess. You know, and then they took me and my sister back, you know, and things just went popping off again because as most of you guys probably already know, man, like geographicals don't work, right? Like you can take the addict out of that environment, but I'm still an addict, right? I'll find drugs, those situations, whatever it is, wherever I go, right? Just give me a little bit of time, man, and I'll figure it out. You know, and same thing for my parents, you know, and moved up here, and a lot of the same behaviors continued, man, a lot of the same behaviors continued, a lot of moving around still, a lot of partying, a lot of violence, and, you know, I'm growing up in this, man, and, like, thinking that it's normal, You know, man, and I don't say all this to bash my parents, man. Like, I want to say that, man. Like, they were addicts just like me, just like you, man. And they were doing the best that they could. I'm a parent today, man, and I realize, man, that no parent wants to treat their kids the way they treated us or grow them up in that kind of environment. But they didn't have any other choice, right? They never found Narcotics Anonymous. They never found a spiritual solution to this disease. You know, man, so they just did what they thought they knew how to do. You know, man, but me and my sister are growing up in this environment, man, and years go by, we're staying in Alberta, hopping place to place, and for some reason, man, my parents decided to get divorced. I'm about 14 years old at this age, man, and they decided they're going to divorce, and, you know, they sit us down. My grandma's there, has always been like the rock in my family, you know, and sit us down at the kitchen table, and they say, all right, Kevin, Swan, we're going to split, you know, like things are not working out, we're going to get a divorce, blah, blah, blah. Who do you want to go live with? Do you want to live with mom, or do you want to live with dad? Well, dad's a little violent, you know, and mom, she's been beaten down over the years of abuse, right? You know, so my sister and I both were like, man, we were with mom. I don't want to stay here with this dude. Like, do you see what's going on around here, man? Like, I'm out. You know, my sister, she's a little bit older than me, like 2 years. So she's about 16. And they say, okay, right? They get their divorce, do whatever they do, man. And my dad, he keeps the house and kicks me and my sister and my mom out to this little apartment in Mount Vernon. It's on Stanford Drive. It's that street, right? You know, it's all apartments. Nobody really goes down there unless you're going down there for something you're supposed to be going down there for, right? You know, and so, you know, at this point, man, in my life, man, like my disease hadn't really kicked off. You know, I could see little behaviors, right, when I reflect on it as an adult, right, like escaping into video games, right, like trying to find some different kind of reality, man, so I didn't have to live my own. You know, when the parties were going on, running around trying to find the Budweisers to drink off that shit, you know, so I could get a little buzz, because I thought that was fun, you know, and never really had an opportunity to really engage in that type of behavior fully, right, because I was living in that environment, man. I was too afraid of my old man and the oppression of that environment, you know. So as soon as they split, man, and like we moved to this apartment, right, like my mom, she fell into this deep depression, right. You know, she just laid in bed all day smoking cigarettes, popping pills, and that was it until she died. You know, and my dad, he was free, right? He didn't have the kids, he didn't have the wife, you know, he's getting the motorcycle, driving, you know, doing whatever he does, man. And so here's my sister, right? Me and my sister, we're just, well, what do we do, man? You know, mom, she's comatose over there, dad, we don't see him, you know. So my sister, man, she's like us too, man. It's my whole family. But so when this happened, man, like my sister, she split into her own thing, man. She just would basically close the door, twist the bubble all day, and that was about it, you know. And which really kind of tore me up, man, because as a kid, like we were close. You know, like we were in the same environment, we were close in age, man, and she looked after me, right? Like she was my rock, you know, growing up as a kid. And when she was gone, man, I was like, now what do I do? You know, and you know, man, I followed suit, man. I didn't know what exactly to do, right? So I just kind of continued to engage in the behaviors that I was taught as a kid, right? Going to school, getting out of trouble, man. I was like, you know what? I'm kind of tired of going to school, man. So I'm just gonna not go anymore. Nobody's checking on me anyways, right? You know, finding people that are doing the same thing, have the same mentality, and I started to run with those individuals, you know. I remember, you know, during this time, man, like I would show up at my house, my apartment, man, and there would just be random people there, right? Like people I didn't know, you know, sleeping on the couch or whatever, you know. And who are you, man? Oh, your sister said come by, crash on the couch. I'm like, all right, okay. What are you doing? You know, as older people, you know, doing drugs, selling drugs, pretty quick out of the house, you know, and so, you know, just right back into that environment, man, and like I flourished in that, right? Like you put me into that shit, man, like I know exactly what to do because I've been watching it my whole life, you know, and I started to develop my own story, you know, man, and start using drugs as we do, man, you know, and it starts out with this and it starts out with that, it doesn't really matter, man. The reality is what I was trying to do, man, is trying to find a place to fit in, right? I was trying to find some kind of acceptance, right? Because here I am alone, man, without my sister, without my dad, without my mom, man, and I don't know how to do what to do, how to cope with life. I don't know how to feel, right? I got all this anger and resentment and guilt and all these things built up, man, and I don't know how to deal with it, right? But then here's people who are just like me saying, man, just come along, dude. You know, I'm like, all right. You know, man, I started using it and I enjoy it, man. I enjoy using it. I never stopped using it because I didn't like it, right? I stopped using it because I didn't like the consequences anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, I enjoyed the drugs, what they did for me, right? Like, I could go and I could use the drugs, man, and I could be the person that I always wanted to be, right? I didn't have to worry about the way that you looked at me or anything like that, man. I could be the person that I thought that I was supposed to be. You know, but the problem is, man, is when you add drugs to a person like me, man, like it just amplifies all the fear and the anger and the resentment and the violence. And I do dumb shit, right? You know, so man, as a young age, man, I'm going in and out of juvenile hall in Skagit County, you know, and pretty quickly, man, like my mom, she burns down every bridge that she's got, you know, just 3 months eviction, 3 months eviction, you know, out. You know, eventually she moved over to Michigan, where my grandfather was, so that way she could get away from that, you know, right away from the evictions and whatnot, and have that support. And my dad, he still checked out, man. He moved back down to California, you know, man. And like I'm like 16 years old at this point, man, and like I'm living on my own. They were like, hey man, you want to come to California? Hell no, I don't want to go to California. This is where I'm at, right? This is where my people. I'm not leaving my people. I'm not leaving my environment. I can't go to some new place. You know, sure as I'm not going with you. My mom, she, you know, whatever, man. You know, so me and my sister, we stay in Mount Vernon, man. And at 16, man, I'm living on my own, man. I'm hopping from house to house, man, going in and out of jail, living in this place called the Oasis Teen Shelter in Mount Vernon, man. They take in kids from, you know, 12 to 18 or whatever, you know, and staying there a lot, you know, eating food from there and whatnot, and just doing what we do, man. You know, trying to find a solution to this internal problem that I wouldn't even realize it, right? Trying to find a place to fit in, trying to find a purpose, trying to find something to be useful to, man, in all the wrong ways. You know, man, and for me, man, like I had come to Narcotics Anonymous plenty times during this time of my life, right? Because, man, I'd go to court, right, get arrested, go to court, and say, hey, Kevin, you want to go to jail, or you want to go out this scheduled recovery place and, you know, get your court card signed and all that? Oh shit, I'll do that, right? I don't want to go back to jail. I'm not a fan. I'll go do this court card shit and get my time in, and then I'll just go back to doing what I was doing, right? Because for me, man, like I can stop using for a little bit, right? Because again, man, drugs are not my problem, man. I have a spiritual disease, man. I have a disease of addiction. I don't have a drug problem. Drugs are a problem. They are not my problem. So me, man, like I can stop for a little bit if I have the right circumstances and the right fear surrounding it, right? But I always come right back to it. Always come right back to it. Until I find something to replace that thing that the drugs are filling, man, I'm going to come right back to it. You know, man, so I'm in and out of Narcotics Anonymous, getting the court card signed, not paying attention, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to get some of this water. Is it free water right here? They're fucking Democrats. So man, like I'm, you know, going through life like this, man, doing what we do, in and out of jail, in and out of these treatment facilities and whatnot, and you know, man, as I grow up, man, I grow into bigger, stronger drugs and bigger and stronger people, you know, and living out of cars and condemned buildings, man, and what I've learned throughout my years, man, is that there's no physical bottom that I cannot put in myself, that I cannot make comfortable for myself, right? You put me into jail, go play some pinochle, man, it's all good, right? Put me in a backseat of a abandoned Cadillac sedan in Bill, man, that's cool. It's got a big chunk of all my shit in it, right? You know, man, like, there's always somewhere that I can make comfort myself so long as I can find what it is that I think that I need. You know, man, but at a certain point, man, like I have to reach what our literature talks about as mental, emotional, and spiritual bankruptcy, right? For me to want to do something different with my life. A physical shit, sure, whatever, I'll figure it out, man. But when I'm broken spiritually, mentally, emotionally, man, that's when I actually want to do something different, you know, man. And, you know, man, that was a difficult thing for me to find. You know, I can tell you, man, that I was in this IOP thing again, man, for whatever charge I had developed, and they say go to jail or it's okay, whatever. And at this point, man, like I'm, you know, like drinking whenever I can, so that way, you know, I can pass the piss test and only pitch once a week. And, you know, got this whole drug addict scheme figured out where I think I'm beating the system, you know, and I'm holding the roll over my counselor's eyes, you know, and I'm going through this, man, and you know, man, this guy, he knows, right? He's one of us, man. Thankfully, I finally found a counselor that was one of us. You know, I've been in and out of these things, and I'm always finding people that are telling me what's wrong with me, right? I always finding somebody, hey, Kevin, this is what your problem is, man. This is what you need to do. Okay, whatever. You don't fucking know. I'm gonna go do what I'm doing, right? You know, man. But I was in this recovery thing, man, and I had this counselor. His name was Keith, and he kept pushing me along. He kept pushing me along, man. And I don't know why, man. He must have saw something in me that I didn't see myself, man. But he kept pushing me along, and I was supposed to be done with this thing, right? Reached my year, which was the time that they said I had to do, you know. And he's like, you know what, Kevin? I don't think you're done, dude. I think you need to do a little bit more. Are you serious? Like, I've done my year. Like, I can go, right? I've been clean, you know. And he's like, no, man. There's something more. He puts me into this program, man. It's similar to the steps, man. It's called MRT. Yeah. Put me into MRT, man, and that wasn't a part of my program. They said, you can go to jail, you go to MRT. You know, and, but man, there was this thing about MRT, man, that what it did, man, anybody who's done it before, it's like the 12 steps, right? It's not as good as the 12 steps, in my honest opinion, but it's similar to them, right? Where it's a workbook, and you're working these 12 steps, and you're answering questions about yourself, right? You are answering questions about yourself. Right? It wasn't somebody else telling me about me, man. Like I was working this book and I was writing and answering these questions to best of my ability, man, and I started to realize something, man, that I didn't like the person that I was, right? I started to see my behaviors, man, and not just the way that they were affecting me, but affecting the people I cared about, right? The people that were in my life, that were still in my life, that gave a shit, man, and I was seeing how it was affecting them, man. During this time, man, like, my grandmother was dying of leukemia, man, and it tore me up. It tore me up pretty good, man. And I'm still doing this thing. I'm talking to my mom. She called me. She said, Kevin, your grandma's going to die. You need to develop a relationship with her. All right, Mom, I think I can do that. You know, to the best of my ability, I did, man. I called her, you know, every so often. She called me more than I did her because selfish and self-centered, of course. But, you know, man, as I'm talking to her, man, I'm honest with her about what I'm doing and where I'm at in life. And she has no judgment on me, man. She just said, Kevin, I just want you to do something different with your life, man. I just want you to do something different with your life. And for some reason I could hear her, man. That paired with this MRT thing, man, like, I started to realize, man, I didn't like the person that I was, man. And I could see a direct relationship between the drugs that I was using, the environments that I was in, man, and the way that I was behaving with the person that I was. You know, man, and so, man, I started to have these moments of clarity, right? Started having these moments of clarity, realizing the person that I was, man, and that maybe I could do something different, you know, man. So I started trying to stop using, man, and it took me a few times, man. Like, I would get a couple of times. I even like bought a 6-pack, right, and like wrote a clean date on it. Like, this is the last one I'm ever going to drink, and I'm never going to drink again, right? This is the last bag I'm going to buy. I'm going to write a date on it. That's going to be my clean date. That shit didn't work, right? Because I can't come on, right? Come on, that's not silly, bro. You drink that the next day. But you know, man, like my grandmother, she died, and I was tore up, man. And all I could think about was her saying, Kevin, I just want you to do something different with your life, man. Somebody that cared about me, that didn't have any judgment on me, man, that just wanted me to do something different with my life. You know, man, so on January 21st, 2012, I made the decision to stop using it. I've stopped using it ever since. You know, man, I wish, man, that I could remember those days, man, but I can't. I love it when people talk about going to their first meeting and last time you used this shit, and I wish I could remember that, man, but it was all a big work for me. You know, man, and I wish that I could say that I came to Narcotics Anonymous right out the gate, man, and I've been spiritual and working steps and doing service and going to meetings ever since, but that's not my story, right? Because I didn't go to Narcotics Anonymous to get clean and all that stuff, man. Like, I was doing court card assignment, I didn't believe that Narcotics Anonymous had a solution for me, right? I thought that I just had to stop using drugs, right? Because I wasn't listening to what they were talking about, the spiritual solution, man, or, you know, the disease, addiction, what it really is, and I thought I just had a drug problem, right? So I did MRT, I passed that shit, man, I stopped using drugs, man, and I stopped using drugs. Good for you, man. Every time I share, man, I say I'm grateful to be clean and I'm grateful to be in recovery. Because those are two different things. Yeah. Right? I can be clean all day, man, but am I in recovery? Am I recovering from this spiritual disease? Probably not, man, unless I'm doing what Narcotics Anonymous talks about, right? I may take away the drugs, man, but I'll find something else to put right in there real quick. Whether it be a woman, whether it be gambling, whether it be work, whether it be anything that I can find to make myself feel whole, right? To find some shred of self-acceptance and self-esteem, man. Something that I can devote myself to so I don't have to think about myself. You know, man, and I found that in all sorts of different things when I got clean. I found that in women, I found that in violence, I found that in school. When I got clean, man, like, I realized that I couldn't continue to sell drugs. But yeah, this is the thing I'm you know? And I had done a few manual labor jobs, man, working outside in Washington sucks. So I was like, man, I'm not going to do that, dude. I'm not going to do that, you know? So for me, man, like, I decided to go to school to do something in healthcare, which was a weird thing for me, man. Which is a weird thing for me. I saw it because I saw my mom try to do that when I was young. And I was like, that's an alright idea, man. There's job security in there, you know. And, man, so I started going to school, and I devoted a lot of my time and attention to that, man. But on the outside, man, on the outside, man, I'm still engaging in a lot of addict behaviors, man. I go to the jails in Skagit County now, man, in Whatcom County. And it was a few years ago, man, I went into the Skagit County jail, and when I was first started going in there, you got to take a picture, right? They had all that stuff documented you. And I'm in there, and the guy's like, all right, what's your name, what's your date of birth, blah, 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 and we're doing that. And he's like, okay, let's take a picture. And he's like, oh, wait, hold on. You already have a picture. And I was like, well, this is a new jail, man. What's the date on that picture? And it was sometime in like 2013 or 2014, right? I wasn't doing panels in 2013 or 2014. I was clean in 2014, 2013, man, but I was not a member of Narcotics Anonymous. I was still going to jail as a clean person in 2013, 2014. Multiple years clean, man. I was still engaging in behavior that got me incarcerated, right? Because I didn't know how to do anything different, right? I thought just being clean was enough, right? well, so what? I'm sleeping with this chick and this chick and this chick. So what if I'm fighting this dude for this reason, right? Who cares, right? I'm clean. That's all that matters, right? I'm going to school. I'm paying my rent, right? Everything's good, right? Everything was not good, man. Everything was not good, man. And, God works in a real funny way, man. Like I went through school, man, and right at the end of school, man, they do this background check, right? Because you're going to go work in healthcare, so you better, have some information on you. And they said, whoa, hold on a second, man. Like, what is all this? What's all these charges that you have and all this stuff, And, well, I used to use a lot of drugs, and because that's my problem, and they say, look, man, like, there's nothing on here that we cannot disqualify you for because it's been so long since you've had these charges. But we cannot allow you to have your license to work in healthcare unless you do this WHIPS program. So Washington State has a program for healthcare professionals when they fuck up, right? They divert drugs, they use drugs, or they're addicts like us and trying to get healthcare. They have this program where you have to meet with a counselor, you have to go to meetings, you have to get a court card signed, you have to do all this shit, right? So here I am, man, 3 years clean, man. Them telling me that if I want to have my job, I got to go back to Narcotics Anonymous and get my court card signed, man. I was so pissed, right? I was like, but I've been clean for all this time, man. Like, why do I got to go and get this court card signed? This is for people that are using. This is for people that are going in and out of jail. They said, no, man, this is for people like you. I go, fuck, all right. So, man, like, I tell you, man, I was angry, I was resentful, man, but I was also a little open-minded, man. So, man, like, I had to start getting my court card signed, right? So I started, I found some meetings in my area, man, and there was this nooner in Mount Vernon, right at the same place where the trailer park was, where we moved up here. My parents moved up here, man. It was converted into a church, and I started going to meetings there. It was New Beginnings, nooner, New Beginnings. And I went there, man, and I went there, the same way that I went there in the past, man. Like, put up, don't fucking talk to me, showing up late, leave early, time I slip, I'm out. Man, but there was something that happened, man, as I showed up to that meeting and I saw somebody that I knew that I was using. Right, I saw this girl named Rebecca, man, and she had 6 months clean, right? Granted, I had 3 years clean, so I thought I was a spiritual giant in comparison to her, right? But I was watching this girl, man, and I was seeing the way that she was interacting with people, the way that she felt about herself, the things she was talking about, and she had something that I didn't have, man, and that was happiness. That was surrender. That was peace with herself. And I looked at her, I was like, man, what are you doing that I'm not doing, man? I'm fucking 3 years clean and I'm miserable. How are you 6 months and you're happy? How is that? She's like, man, what have you been doing these last 3 years? Well, I just been, staying clean, working and doing this, doing that. Like, are you, working steps? You have a sponsor? Are you doing service? What the hell are you talking about, man? She's like, dude, check it out, man. She hooked me up with some of the men in the program, right? Men, women, and man, I don't know how to say it, man, but like, in that moment, man, when she was talking to me, man, I could see the happiness on her face and the misery of myself, man, I wanted that. I wanted that, man. So I came in, man, with these 3 things that I feel like are indispensable, man. Like it talks about it in our reading, right? Spiritual principles that are indispensable: honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Right, man, I was honest about how fucking miserable I was, where I was and what I needed from the people. Like, man, I'm 3 years clean, I'm miserable, what do I do? Right? So I was honest, man, but I also had to be open-minded to what you guys are talking about, man. Like, I have to listen, man. I have to show up and be like, okay, cool, man. Like, what is it that you guys are saying, man? And listen to that. But it's a whole other thing, man, to be willing. Right? I like to think about being open-minded without willingness is like being in a boat without a paddle, not going anywhere. Right? I got to have the willingness to do these things that people are talking about, man. And for me, man, like I was in this position, man, where I could see, I had this, again, this moment of clarity, man, like where I wanted something different, man. I wanted this happiness, man. I wanted to feel like she did, like they did, like you guys did, and so I started doing the deal, man. And for me, man, like the difference between being clean and being in recovery, man, is being in recovery for me, man, is going to meetings, having a sponsor, working steps, and doing service. For me, man, when I first got here, I hated meetings. Hated them, man. I always showed up late, leave early, man, for the longest time, man. Especially birthday meetings, they drove me nuts, man. But man, what I've learned today, man, is that meetings are the source, man. They're how I connect with you guys, right? They're how I find people in Narcotics Anonymous that are doing the same thing. They're how I create healthy relationships with people. They're how I learn how to live life, right? Man, like, for the longest time, man, I didn't have any friends, right? I had people that I used with, people that I associated with, and stuff like that. When I finally found Narcotics Anonymous, I found people that I could actually relate with, man, that didn't want something from me, just what was best for me, And my wife, she is way too good for me, first of all. But she's a member of AA. And, her and I both have a strong support group foundation in those two fellowships in Whatcom County, and when we got married, man, like, it was only members of Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous there. Glenn was our DJ, man. People from the program, man, cooked our food, man. Helped me work the ground, man, that we got married on, man.
Yeah.
Helped us set everything up, man. Helped us, man. My best man was carrying the grades, man. He's a member as well, man. Like, it was only people from Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, man. It was only members of recovery at that place, man. And today, man, those are the people that I associate with, and all because I'm an active member of meetings, right? Because I'm actively going to meetings and engaging them and trying to find people that are doing the same thing and trying to engage with people who are trying to do the same thing I am. Like I talk about IMG, man. Like, I love that place, man. I love it. Every time I go into that place, man, I just get really joy, man. But and the second thing that I gotta do, man, is that I gotta have a sponsor, right? That's another reason why I go to meetings, man. How am I going to find a sponsor if I don't go to meetings, man? A sponsor to me, man, is somebody that can take me through the steps and teach me how to be a man, right? I came into Narcotics Anonymous not knowing how to have integrity or honor or respect or be an employee or be a husband or a father or a son or any of these things, right? All I knew about me, what can you give me, right? And the sponsor taught me how to do those things, man. The sponsor has taught me how to be a man, not just in recovery, man, but a man in my marriage. A man in my relationships with my son and my daughter, right, and the people that I interact with on a daily basis. Man, I didn't know how to do these things when I first got here, man. Like, you guys had to teach me. My sponsor has to continue to teach me, right, man? And the other thing the sponsor does is it takes me through the steps, right, man? The steps for me, man, are a guideline to have a relationship with God and my understanding, man. The steps that they do, man, is they remove self, right? They remove all the shame and the guilt and the anger and the resentment, man. And they teach me about these things, man, so I don't have to continue to engage in them. Right? They teach me how to live a different life, how to apply a spiritual principle instead of character defect. Right? They help me to clean up the records of my past and nurture that relationship with God and all of you people and myself. Right? And the steps of the solution in my life today, man. And service, man, is the fourth thing that I know I have to do on a regular basis, man. Taylor talking about it, man. Like, service has given me so much, man. Service is what gives me purpose today, man. Like, sure, I can have the steps and I can have sponsorship and I can have meetings, man, but service is what keeps me connected to Narcotics Anonymous. If you look at the old timers, man, you look at the people with 10, 20, 30, 40 years, man, and they're still coming around, what are they doing? They're doing service, man. Service keeps me connected to Narcotics Anonymous. Now, without my service commitments, without the men that I sponsor, man, I would not still be here. Without the recovery commitments that I have, man, like, I would have been gone a long time ago, man. Man, and when I first learned that, man, was when I was about 4 years clean, man, and I went to this camp out, man, it's called Spiritual Connections in Oak Harbor, man, and at that point, man, I wasn't totally sure about Narcotics Anonymous, man. I was from a little home group of just a few people, man, and they were like, why don't you come to this camp out, come to this camp out. All right, man, I'll show up and check it out, man. And I didn't bring none of my stuff, because I knew I was just going to leave, And I showed up, man, and I saw all these people, man, like having a good time and doing the deal like we do here, man. And I saw people like setting up chairs. I'm like, hey, Kevin, why don't you help me set up some chairs, man? Why don't you make this coffee, man? Like right away, I felt like I belonged to something. My whole life, man, I'm looking for something to belong to, man. My whole life, I'm looking for some kind of purpose that can be useful to, man. And I found that through service in Narcotics Anonymous, man. I love these campouts, man, because it reminds me of why I continue to come here, man. It keeps me centered in Narcotics Anonymous, man, like, as a result of doing these four things and being a member of Narcotics Anonymous and doing recovery to the best of my ability, man, I've developed a beautiful life. Man, like, I have a career today, man, I never thought I would have had. Today, I'm a nurse, I work in the ICU, and with my past and my history, man, like, that's not a job that I should have, right? Narcotics Anonymous gave me the tools to have that job, man. When I was going back to school to do my prerequisites for nursing school, man, like, I realized that I could not live in the same situation that I did when I first got clean and trying to get into healthcare. Man, so I went back and I got my record expunged. I found a person in these rooms, man, who was a lawyer. He said, man, I know how to do it. Let me teach you. Right? I found another member of Narcotics Anonymous that knew how to do something that I didn't know how to do, man, and I employed that, man, and I got my entire record. Man, you look good today, no kind of shit. Right? It took a lot of work, man, and it took a lot of patience, man, and tolerance, man, and showing up to all sorts of different courts and all this stuff, man, and saying, hey, man, this is what I'm doing, man, here's the paperwork, will you please, this is what I'm trying to do with my life. And what I found, man, is and I come from a place of God, man, and I come from a place of usefulness and Narcotics Anonymous, man, like, God's will doesn't take you where His grace doesn't protect you, right? You know, and today, man, like I've been able to have that career, man, and build that beautiful career, man. I love that job so much, man. And, I have this wife, man, who's, like I said, better than I deserve, man. And we get to have this marriage, you know, and it's a great marriage, man. Sometimes I forget that, but it's a great marriage. And I have a son, man, who's 18 months now, who I never thought that I would have, man. I never thought that I would be able to have a child, man. And I don't have to parent him the same way that I was parented, right? Narcotics Anonymous taught me a totally different way to live, man. It's where I don't have to employ the same behaviors that my parents did. You know, man, I get to show him a different life where he doesn't have to ever see me love him. I don't ever have to put hands on my son. I don't have to yell at my son because he does something I don't like, right? Narcotics Anonymous taught me that. Narcotics Anonymous taught me how to be a father. You know, man, and I have all these wonderful things, man. I bought a house a couple of years ago, man, and for somebody that lived in a broken down car, man, he said it was the only home, man, the fucking dream that I never thought I could have had. You know, man, I say all these things, man, I get real emotional about it, man, because I forget, right? Because I'm a drug addict, man. I have a disease of addiction, and no matter how long I've been clean, no matter how many steps I've worked, no matter how many men I've sponsored, no matter how many things I've done in Narcotics Anonymous, I still have a disease of addiction, and the rent is due every day, right? Every day the rent is due. It doesn't matter what I've done before, it matters what I do today, right? And sometimes I forget that, man. Sometimes I forget that, man, and I did forget that. You know, man, when COVID hit, man, I was a nurse. Working in the ICU, right? And I can't go to meetings. Are you kidding me right now? I can't go to meetings, man. I work with all these vulnerable populations, and I can't be in that type of environment. I can't be risking that to other people, and I can't be risking that to myself. My wife is pregnant, right? Like, I can't expose her to that. And Zoom meetings, those are bunk. Those aren't even real meetings, you know, man. And I made all these excuses as to why I couldn't engage in Narcotics Anonymous anymore, right? Made all these excuses as to why I didn't need to continue to come to NA. Well, I've been clean for so long, man. I got these people on sponsor, and I'll just focus on that. Right? It's all good. You know, man. And what I did is I slowly pushed myself out of Narcotics Anonymous. Man, like I said, man, like if I don't have something to replace the drugs, I'll find something else. Right? Narcotics Anonymous is the best thing that I've ever found to replace that. The only thing that really works. You know, but what I find, man, is that when I remove myself from Narcotics Anonymous, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, man, I start to resort to those old behaviors. Right, man? And I stand up here today, man, with so much shame and so much guilt, man, for the behaviors that I've engaged in as a clean member of Narcotics Anonymous, man. And I'm here today, man, to tell you that I'm working through that, right? When my wife was pregnant, 6 months pregnant, man, I was so far away from Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm working nights at the hospital, man, and I'm engaging in those behaviors, right? I'm that guy again. I don't really think so, right? Because it's this behavior that I've come to think is just an acceptable thing, right? Flirting with women, you know, engaging in that, right? Like that's just what you do, right? I put it in this other box. It's not a disease of addiction. That's just the way men are, right? That's just the way that we do things, you know. And I'm flirting. I'm so far away from Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm so far away from my wife, and I'm so far away from my sponsor, man. And I have an affair with my wife. I have an affair on my wife, man, at my work. You know, and right out the gate, man, I regretted it. I regretted it, man, and I felt so much shame, so much guilt. I tried to come right back into Narcotics Anonymous and do this thing, man. And this thing that I do, man, is when I fuck up, man, I try to do everything at once, right? Okay, I'm going to go to meetings, I'm going to work with my sponsor, I'm going to do steps, I'm going to do service, I'm going to be a perfect member of Narcotics Anonymous, and I fail, right? Because I can't do everything, man. I can't do everything all the time, you know, and I fail, and I'm sitting here with shame and guilt, and I'm unwilling to get vulnerable about it. I'm unwilling to tell people what's really going on because I don't want people to look at me that way. I don't want people to see me as this weak person, this person. You know, here's Kevin, man, this shining star in Narcotics Anonymous, look what he did. Man, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that you guys are going to judge me. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be the man that you guys think I should be. Right back where I was using drugs and not using drugs. You know, man, and I try to self-correct, and what I learned, man, is that I'm powerless. Right? I'm powerless over drugs. I'm powerless over my disease. Right? My disease shows up in so many different ways, man, ways that I'm not even aware of at the time. You know, man, and I just continue, man, and try to stop it a little while I can. I engage in this affair on my wife. For an extended period of time, man, I start to disconnect from my wife, and I definitely can't come back to Narcotics Anonymous, man, and I'm struggling, man, and I'm going through it, man, and I'm trying to find comfort in the thing that's causing me pain, right? I'm just going deeper and deeper and deeper into my disease, right? You know, man, I talk about the insanity, man. I'm trying to find comfort in the thing You know, man, I always hear about people, man, with substantial clean time killing themselves. You know, man, I never understood that. Like, how the fuck did you do that, man? What would make you want to do that? You know, what would make somebody with so much clean time want to off himself? And I'm here to tell you today, man, that I know why. You know, man, that there was a point in my life, man, very recently, with 9, 10, 11 years clean, man, I wanted to fucking kill myself. I was driving down the freeway, fantasizing about taking down a bottle of whiskey and driving my car off the bridge. Clean. Not telling anybody about it. Because I got it. I'll figure it out. I can do this. And man, like, we can only keep the lie hidden for so long, man. You know, and eventually, she finds out. Of course she does. Because I'm different, right? I'm acting in different ways. I'm not showing up, man. My wife had my son by this time, right? I'm not showing up for my son. I'm working all the time. Cause I have a house in Blaine, I live in Mount Vernon, that's an hour away, right? I'm working nights. Well, babe, you know, they're going to stay out here, you know, because I don't want to drive, you know, it's early in the morning, I fall asleep when I'm driving. I'm making all these excuses as to why I can't be a part of my relationship with my wife and my son. You know, the reality is, man, is I'm feeling so much shame and so much guilt that I just can't even look her in the eye. But I can't look at my son, man, because I know I'm failing him as a father. You know, man, and I'm just wanting to die every day, man, fantasizing about it, obsessing about it, you know, and eventually my wife, she finds out, man, and she tells me, she says, Kevin, are you cheating on me, man? I try to lie, as we do, you know, and I'm a terrible fucking liar. And, you know, when it comes clean, man, and you think that would be enough, right? You think that her calling me out and saying, yeah, I've been cheating on you, you think that would be enough, but there's not enough. I have to, man, when I burn my life to the ground, when I burn it to the ground, I piss on the ashes, right? And scoop that shit up and burn it again, right? I burn my shit to the ground, you know, and I continue doing what I'm doing, and I'm telling myself all sorts of reasons as to why I'm doing it. Well, this house really isn't that nice, and I really actually want to live here. My wife really ain't that great, man. You know, man, she does this and that and this and that, you know, and, you know, my job, you know, maybe I should find a new one, man. Because, man, like, I tell myself all sorts of things, man, to justify my behavior, right? I live in this denial. Right? Like we talk about this denial, man, I can spin it and spin it and spin it and find all these justifications and rationalizations for my behavior, right? So I can continue to do it. I tell my wife, I don't think I love you anymore. That broke her heart, man. You know, and broke mine too, man. Like, the only thing I can understand, man, I never stopped loving my wife, man, but I had to tell her that. I had to tell myself that so that way I could deal with the pain that I was feeling, to justify the things that I was doing. You know, and you know, that eventually, man, like you can reach a point of clarity, man. And for me, man, like I continued these behaviors, and I just wanted to die, man. And eventually, I got to the point, man, where I was so miserable, and I found people in these rooms, man, that were going through the same thing that I was going through, man. And I wasn't totally willing to be vulnerable with them at first, man, but I kept on having to come to Narcotics Anonymous, man. Even though I didn't want to, maybe because I had these service commitments, right? I had this guy I was sponsoring this Corbin, he's all on fire over his He said, come to meet with me. All right, dude, I guess I'll come to a meeting. You know, I'm still showing up, and I'm seeing this, man. I'm seeing what's going on, man. And I have my sponsor, man, who's been through the same thing that I've been going through, man. And he's like, yeah, man, I know what you're going through, man. What are you going to do about it? I'm actually, I'll figure it out. You know? And I'm not figuring it out, man. And eventually my wife, she said, you know what, man, I can't see you anymore. You can't come home anymore. You can't see your son anymore. I could see the pain in her eyes, man, when she was telling me that. So, man, like I was willing to take a look at that, man, and do something different. You know, man, I went to my sponsor, I said, man, this is what's going on, man. And what I can tell you, man, is that what I had to do and what I was always unwilling to do was get vulnerable. Was to tell people what was actually going on and remove this shame and this guilt and go to people and say, hey man, I'm fucking struggling and I need help, right? Talk about this honesty, this open-mindedness, and this willingness again, right? Remove this behavior away from this other box that I put in it and put it where it really belongs with the disease of addiction, right? Treat it as a real piece of business and say, man, this is not just a moral deficiency, right? This is a part of your disease and you need to do something about it, man. And, you know, man, like it was a great amount of pain that caused me to realize that. You know, man, I was trying to avoid it for so long. My sponsor kept telling me that you're going to have to deal with that somebody were either now or on the back end, man. The pain is unavoidable. The misery is optional, right? Something like that, man. Pain is unavoidable, but the misery is optional. Man, I was in misery, man. I started to realize I didn't have to be in misery anymore, man. And, So I talked to my sponsor, man, and we started working steps with me, man. And I was willing to get vulnerable with him, and because I was able to get vulnerable with him, I was able to get vulnerable with a couple other people. Right? I was able to get vulnerable with a couple other people, man, and that shame and that guilt started to go away a little bit. Started to put it down and put it where it really belongs, man, address it, man, and start to work through it, man, instead of allowing it to keep me out of those narcotics and violence and keep me stuck in my own pain and my own behaviors. And what I had to do is I had to make a decision, man. I had to stop, right? I couldn't continue to engage in these behaviors. I thought, well, maybe I can still, hang out with this one, right? And still work on myself. This one will be fine, right? Substitute one for another one might say. Man, and the reality is that I had to stop just like with drugs, man. I can't just do this drug, I can't just do that drug, I can't just engage in this behavior. I have to stop it. Complete abstinence is where this program starts. Man, and man, I wish I could tell you exactly how that happened in my life, man, but I can tell you that I reached a point of desperation, man, where it was either continue going on the way I was living and kill myself or do something that I didn't want to do, man, and get vulnerable. Man, and I was able to get vulnerable and start to change my behaviors, man. And today, man, I'm far from through it, man. Far from through it, man. Man, today I have an apartment in Mount Vernon, and I own a house in Blaine. This part of that I live in Mount Vernon, man, is just a block away from where I did all my dirt, man. A block away from where I got clean, a block away from when I use that, I say there's like a 1 mile radius of the downtown Mount Vernon area, right? I never left that area. Where am I at? Within a 1 mile radius of downtown Mount Vernon. Weird. Man, I have my house up in Blaine, man. I pay my mortgage there. And I have my house in Mount Vernon. I pay my rent there, man. I throw up all the time, man. And I'm fighting with my wife. We're talking again, man. For some reason, I don't know why, man, but she's willing to work on things with me, man. I don't know. Maybe she sees something that I don't. Maybe she has, a stronger program than me. I don't know that I would be able to do what she's doing, man. But we're working through it, and we have a lot of conversations that I don't want to have. Right? She says a lot of things that I don't want to hear. Right? Like I was in a meeting the other day and the person was talking about acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean that you have to agree with it or that you have to like it, but you have to accept it. Right? There's a lot of shit right now that I don't necessarily agree with and I don't like, but I'm accepting it, right? Because that's what I have to do to be able to move through this. I have to get vulnerable. And I'm talking to men about what's really going on in my life. I'm not saying, oh, I'm fine, I'm good. I'm alright, everything's great. Right? I'm doing fine. Going to this meeting, working with this. No, fuck that, man. I want to die inside. Right? I'm miserable, man. I want to do something different, but I don't know how. Right? And they teach me. Man, you guys have been teaching me how to do that again, man. Teaching me how to be a newcomer again, man. I've been going to as many meetings as I can, man. Recommitted with my sponsor, getting involved with my home group again, man. Like things that I was not doing through COVID in these last couple of years, man. Because I thought I was good. I thought I was over, man. I was good to go. Man, and somebody told me when I got over, and they said, man, just be a newcomer. That was the most profound shit I ever heard, man. Man, and that's what I've been applying in my life, man. My life is still a mess, like I already said, man, but something that's changed, man, is the way that I feel about myself. I still feel like a dirtbag, and I probably should feel like a dirtbag. That pain is what motivates me, man. I am a dirtbag. I did some dirtbag shit, but that doesn't mean that that's who I am, right? That doesn't have to define me. Right, just like our drug use doesn't have to define us. The things that we did in our addiction, the things that we do when we're clean, do not define us. Right? So, man, for me, man, my biggest thing, man, is taking little steps. Like I shared about before, man, I like to do everything. I'm going to work with my sponsor, I'm going to go to meetings, I'm going to do service, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, man. I heard someone say to me, man, when I do that, I fail. So what do? I do one thing every day. I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray. And when I solidify that back into my foundation, man, I'm a common sponsor every day. And I solidify that, I do another thing, man. And what God does, man, is it builds me back up, man. Man, I nurture that relationship with my higher power. I don't know if this relationship with my wife and I are going to work out. I don't know if I'm going to be able to be her husband in the way that I want to be. I'll continue to act like it because that's who God would have me be, I think. Man, at least in the behaviors, right? I'm going to continue to work my steps with my sponsor. I'm going to continue to nurture my relationship with my God. I'm going to continue to show up to my home group, man, and do what it is that I feel like God would have me do. And I'll trust God with the outcome. God's will will take me. God's will won't take me where the grace won't protect me, right? That's my mantra, man. Because I tell you what, man, this has been so painful and so hard. It's like being a newcomer again, man. Just trying to not get high, man. Just trying not to hit up that female. Just trying not to spend that money. Just trying to not overwork. Just trying to not, right? And I can't do that anymore, man. I'm so grateful that you allowed me to come here to speak today, man. So fucking grateful. I was telling this man, because I was actually not even going to come. I was like, no, they don't show up, Taylor texted me, hey, can you speak? I would be honored to speak, Taylor, because that's what Narcotics Anonymous taught me how to do. Because that's what God would have me do. Right? I talked to my sponsor, he said, hell yeah, you're going to go speak. That's exactly what you need to do. And you're going to go there, you're going to get vulnerable, and you're going to tell people exactly what's going on. That's not just for you, that's also for them. Right? Because people need to see, man, that we can be vulnerable in these rooms, man, that we can share what's really going on. We don't have to just say, oh, no, I'm good, when you're fucking dying inside, man. There's nothing in here that one of us has not done or experienced. Right? There's nothing unique. Right? What I've learned through this experience, man, is there's many men who've gone through the same thing that I'm going through and have been on the other side. Right? I don't know what the other side looks like, but I know today I have serenity, I have peace, and I can hold my head up a little bit higher, man. I don't want to kill myself today. I don't want to burn my life to the ground any more than I already have. Right? Like I want to be the man that God would have me be, whoever that is. You know, and you guys taught me how to do that. I will continue to do that. And if you guys, anybody here, man, on newcomers, man, if you're on the fence about this thing, man, don't. Just jump in, man. Be honest about who you are, where you are, what you need, man. Just raise your hand, I need help, man, and we will help you, man. But there's action you got to take, right? There's action, man. There's a difference between being clean and being in recovery. And you can burn your life to the ground clean. So that's it, man.